Showtime.
Sing along, Ken.
Incredible. Amazing.
And, whoa, hold on. Too close. Back it up. Gotta back it up. Welcome,
going.
everyone, to episode 167 of the most must-see show to ever hit the Bedford TV airwaves, or any airwaves, for that matter. North, south, east, west, frontwards, backwards, diagonally, any which way you look at it, all around the world, the Wrestling Connection. I am your host, your connection to the wrestling world, Mr. Ken Hill, at your service. Yes, Mr. Ken Hill, the formidable felon, the perfect Ken, at your service. And, of course, alongside me in the studio today, as always, your WK Big Four pay-per-view champion, Mr. Greg Dolan.
Hello. Danger Dolan.
Mr.
Hello.
Danger Dolan. Danger Dad. Danger Dolan Dad. And, of course...
There you go. Now you can't see me.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, I finished. Okay. Mr. 8-Ball himself, your one-stop magic shop, Mr. Nick Giglio. Well, gentlemen, we got an interesting week. We actually have a regular week going on here. No, we got the pay-per preview for WWE Backlash SmackDown pay-per-view coming up next Friday. But today, it's just a regular old show with, of course, irregular old me and my irregular regulars. All right, so before we kick off the wrestling review, just to kick off the top of the show, normally I come to the audience talking about, the various dirt sheet tidbits I find online. I talk about a couple that stand out to me, but this one stood out to me so much that I had to get a printed copy of this. And it was interesting to me because it's about one of WWE's network shows, Bring It to the Table. You know, that whole offshoot of Pardon the Interruption, except not nearly as interesting and going too far into
Hey, Ken, before you do that, can you see the chat room over there on the screen?
I can actually, yes.
Okay, just making sure you can see it. All right, back to what you were doing.
Back to what I was doing. All right, thanks. All right, so where was I? So basically, this, I mean, it's more or less, the show basically toes the company line. I mean, they basically say, oh, indie fans are wrong, WWE's going in the right direction, it's something that we can all sink all this new stuff that we're not familiar with is something we can sink our teeth into, so on and so forth. And the fact that you have JBL, company man himself, and Gopher for Mr. McMahon, the fact that you have him on there, it just raises so many red flags. And this episode in particular, you gotta actually listen to this. I mean, verbatim. This is a full recap of the show. All right. Off to a roaring start as Rosenberg and Graves introduce themselves while mentioning the controversy around things they have said, and JBL just mentions why he won money at golf last week. Oh, let's see. Okay. So instead of, going over the controversy that JBL's been going through the last few weeks between him and Mauro Ranallo, just like Morono is more or less being paid not to say a word about it and keep having the doors kept open for him to come back, JBL is basically just kind of glossing things over, not even kind of like making jokes about it, but not really bringing it up and not really addressing it. I mean, oh yes, he'll address it on social media, but when asked directly about it, he dodges the question. Curious. All right. First, AJ's comments on talking smack. When he said SmackDown makes them and Raw takes them. Basically, it's SmackDown makes the on-air talents and Raw more or less steals them. And you've seen that with the fact that Raw has increased slightly in quality the last few weeks, whereas SmackDown's kind of taken a dip, what with their obsessive push of Jinder Mahal, of all people. I mean, curiously. He basically called out the WWE, AJ basically calling out the WWE for stealing from SmackDown to make Raw better. Graves doesn't think AJ has a point. He doesn't agree that SmackDown is better than Raw. What is he smoking? I mean, quote unquote, what is he smoking? And I ask this because, I mean, okay, yes, maybe Raw has been better than SmackDown for the last few weeks, but only because they brought over the best bits and pieces from SmackDown. You brought over Bray Wyatt, who up until a few weeks ago had been in one of the hottest feuds on SmackDown with Randy Orton. Okay, you send a New Day over to SmackDown because they ran their course as tag team champions and were no longer entertaining. You also send Kevin Owens. You send Sami Zayn over to SmackDown. Chris Jericho ends up on SmackDown. And again, what did Raw really get? Oh yeah, they got The Miz. They got Dean Ambrose. And Miz, okay, you took Miz, who was on the top of his game on SmackDown, and now he's more or less lost in the shuffle on Raw, except for the Intercontinental title match that he's got next week, but I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. Okay. They move on to the next topic, House of Horrors. JBL is nuts as JBL thinks it was a great match. He thinks the crowd reacted the way they did because it's hard to watch something in the arena. No, okay, it wasn't that we were watching, it wasn't because they were watching from the arena that they found it hard to believe. It was the fact that this was supposedly taking place near the arena, yet it was still light over there, and yet with the House of Horrors, it was pitch black. Like, okay, no explanation. Not even saying, oh, well, Bray Wyatt has supernatural powers. He used them to make the area dark. Didn't even give an explanation. And not to mention the fact that it wasn't so much House of Horrors as it was a house of assorted knickknacks. I mean, you had essentially sticks and baby doll.
That actually sounds delightful. A house of assorted knickknacks.
Yeah, assorted.
Sort of like an antique roadshow kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Knickknacks.
Yeah, like assorted, psychotic knickknacks, like with these little voodoo stick structures and.
They should have brought an appraiser in and just done a whole antiques roadshow thing out of it. Would have been a good crossover.
Well, disfigured baby doll heads and really scary. Okay, this is what they think scares kids nowadays. I mean, okay, so Greg, I posed a question to you. Did you have Travis Travioli watch The House of Horrors?
I have not. Just in case it's scary. I don't want to terrify the kid. I know
It's
you
not
say it's
scary
not, but
in
he's
the
a young, impressionable. He's an impressionable young man. I don't want to
I mean,
terrify
unless
him with
he's
baby heads.
scared of psychedelic film cuts and weird mood lighting. I don't think he's going to be all that scared.
I don't know. I'm a little hesitant to experiment on my own child.
Greg,
but
have
if
you
anyone else
seen The
out
House
there
of
wants to
Horrors?
donate a toddler to experiment on,
Greg, have you seen the House of Horrors match?
no, I've not.
You haven't watched it.
No, I've not.
So watch it and get back to me
All right.
and let me know how what you think.
Okay.
Because I like I said, I saw it firsthand. It stunk. There's no other way to say it. It just plain stunk.
Is this like, can we sing like Little Shop of Horrors while we do this?
Well, yes, yeah. If we want to get pulled. All right. JBL gets off that match and talks about how horrible the King of the Road match was in WCW. Okay, Rosenberg brought up the King of the Road match in WCW as a way to throw more dirt on WCW. And the writer says, I would gladly watch that match 1,000 times before I watched, and this is a strong word right here, the abortion that was the House of Horrors.
I wouldn't use that word.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I didn't like it either, but I mean, I wouldn't go that far in saying it. All right. He says you have to try things sometimes, and sometimes they work or they don't. It didn't work. He thinks the match worked for the TV audience, and it didn't for the live audience. It didn't work for any audience. All right. Corey says nobody knew what to expect, and admits the live crowd hated it. He doesn't think the fans got what they were hoping to see. Graves was also a fan of the match, which is, oh, so sad. And I mean, I think it's just an example of how wussified America is nowadays. That WWE, the writers, honestly think that what we saw in the House of Horrors is something that would frighten any regular person, like old or young, or at any age. They think that this stuff that we saw last week would scare anyone. That's how I think how insulting this is. I think it's just a microcosm of how like we're supposedly being, like we're being worn down. That we're basically being coddled nowadays, as to what frightens us. I mean, you go back 20, 30 years at all the blood and gore and violence that went on, and you look at you look at this generation of like horror and thriller, and it looks positively tame by comparison. And to those who say that's not a fair comparison, okay, here's a better idea. Put something forward that we can appreciate, that we the older generation would appreciate about, like, you know, horror past. Okay, give us something that we would appreciate. It doesn't have to be the same blood and gore and violence that we grew up on, but something that would appeal to us as well. All right? Instead of just trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator, appeal to the denominator that's still bothering to watch you. There's an idea. Okay. They move on to this, what they call the yay or boo segment. Rosenberg boos the Superstar shakeup as he wanted to kind of draft where he explain things instead of guys and girls just showing up. Makes sense, right? That's kind of what I wanted. I wanted more of something organized, not not people popping up whenever. All right. Graves thought it was good, but hated that Charlotte was taking off Raw. JBL, as you would expect, loved it and thinks it gives guys and girls something new to sink their teeth into. It would have been nice if there had been a little more pomp and circumstance about it, instead of just saying, oh, hey, let's just throw these guys and these girls on Raw and these guys and these girls on Raw and Smackdown, and let's see if the audience is actually smart enough to notice the difference. That's more or less how the Superstar shakeup went. All right. Yay or boo the welcoming committee, that being Natalya, Carmella, and Tamina Snuka. Oh, yeah, and James Ellsworth, but all right. JBL's off these lays on SmackDown, gives him something to do that has meaning. It's fine. Graves says boo as it feels it was just thrown together and won't hurt the division. Yeah. I mean, like I said, give them something to do, all right? Better than just having them all feud at the same time over the women's title. All right, yay or boo on the Titus brand. Rosenberg has decided to see what Titus can do as a manager, and Graves also a fan. Graves calls Titus entertaining as he is great on the mic, even if he is lacking in the ring. Okay, first of all, have any one of us ever noted Titus O'Neil for having, like, par excellence mic skills? No.
9.
We've barely even mentioned Titus, which shows just about how much impact he has on the actual wrestling industry. Like, zero. Zip. Nada. All right. JBL boos as he feels Titus is too big to be a manager because he dwarfs anyone he manages. Okay, we've had plenty of, we have plenty of big managers. I wouldn't say like tall managers per se, but okay, you have, let's see. You have, Paul Heyman's a big guy. Not big, but, you know, like me. All right, discuss this. Okay, this is where the show kind of starts going off the rails. They discuss if Alexa Bliss is bigger than the four horsewomen, that being Bayley, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks. JBL compares her to Kurt Angle as someone who picked up the business quickly. All right, so you're going to compare Alexa Bliss, who, mind you, is the first ever dual SmackDown and Raw Women's Champion, but also you're comparing her to Kurt Angle, who in his rookie year won the Intercontinental, WWE World Championship, and European Championship, all in his first year. That's who you're comparing Alexa Bliss to. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, it's flattering to Alexa, but on the same, are you serious? Like, okay, there's no comparison. And, like, this is where, like I said, it starts to go off the rails. I mean, yeah, all right. So next they say, now here's where it gets truly ridiculous. They have the balls to ask if Reigns/Braun from Payback is the match of the year. Are you serious? Okay, are you kidding me? Okay, Reigns and Braun and Strowman had a good match. I said this much last week in the review. They had a great match. Would I call it match of the year? Heck no. Okay, more or less they went through the big spots. Okay, they had them both working hurt. They already had good chemistry from their last match at the match before at Fastlane. But match of the year, not even close. You have so many more candidates. You have matches down on Raw, you have matches on SmackDown, pay-per-view. In NXT, that would be far more qualified for match of the year at this point than Reigns versus Strowman 2. So many more. So many more. All right. And then they take the time to blow smoke up Reigns' backside for getting the best out of Braun in the ring. Okay, last I checked, Braun was actually pretty decent in the ring before he moved on to face Reigns. Like before and after. JBL talks about how Reigns has had great match after great match, which isn't exactly deniable, but still. And people have the right to boo, but they don't know why they are booing. Oh, we don't know why. We're not smart enough to know why we dislike someone being shoved down our throats for the last 2.5 years. No idea whatsoever. Rosenberg thinks people who boo Reigns are basically doing it out of jealousy because our wives all want him while we're out of shape and sit on the couch. Really? So basically they toe the line that, oh, hey, you can boo or cheer for whoever you want, that's cool. But if you don't cheer for our golden boy, if you don't cheer for Roman Reigns, then you're a loser. You're a fat, out of shape, perpetual loser. Are you kidding me with this? Are you kidding me?
Loser.
Yeah, loser. Like, I mean, Nick, I mean, do you believe this?
I do not.
I mean, what do you think of this so far?
Are they calling it? They're saying it's match of the year, right?
Yeah. First of all, they're calling Reigns Strowman match of the year, which I don't buy for a second.
Well, it's of the year. Is it fiscal year or like calendar year?
Calendar year.
Wow. It's only May.
Yeah, and it's May, and they're already calling this match of the year. I could think of quite a few matches down in NXT featuring, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano that I could consider match of the year over this. I mean, I'm not saying Reigns versus Strowman is bad. It's not. Far from it. The right guy went over. It had the right impact. But bottom line, it's not match of the year. All right? I just don't get where they're going with it. I mean, they're doing so much to blow up Roman Reigns right here. And it's frankly pathetic at this point. I mean, okay. Next, they talk about Shinsuke Nakamura. Rosenberg's annoyed he isn't wrestling yet. I mean, a couple of fans, I can understand that. JBL thinks Rosenberg is being stupid, as you don't need to see Nakamura wrestle every week. So they're basically giving him the Brock Lesnar excuse. He's such a celebrity, he's such a big star, such a big performer, that he doesn't need to be on every week. I think that's fine up to his main roster debut, but after that, I think you do need to have him on a regular basis, okay? Because you need to build him up to the point where he's like a Brock Lesnar type, where he's an absolute legend and immortal, like he's almost untouchable. Like, build him up to that, then start like giving him the Brock Lesnar treatment. All right. Graves agrees as the NXT fans are a small portion, so I have to get those not familiar more familiar with him. All right. Rosenberg makes a big deal of JBL calling Nakamura Shin. Graves verifies, tongue-in-cheek, that JBL and Nakamura are good friends. Uh-huh. That I don't buy for a second. That I don't buy for a second, considering that JBL isn't exactly a fan of the whole indie scene, which is where Nakamura got a lot of his cred over in New Japan. All right. They talk about Sheamus saying the Attitude Era doesn't come close to what they're doing now. JBL says that Sheamus should take pride, but he's nuts if he believes that. JBL calls the roster they had in the Attitude Era the greatest ever. Graves thinks the current roster is the deepest, but they don't have that guy on the level of The Rock and Austin. Rosenberg talks about how the ratings were better back then, but only because there were 5 channels. Now they have more to compete with, and they are still putting up great numbers. Okay, considering that you've had some of the lowest ratings for Raw and SmackDown in the last few weeks, okay, they've had some of their lowest numbers of 2017, and you want to tell me they're putting up great numbers compared to what the Attitude Era put up? There's no comparison. Like you had like 6.0, you had like 6.0 ratings, 6.0 Nielsen ratings back in the day of the Attitude Era. Whereas now, you're lucky if you get a third of that. It's ludicrous. And before you bring up a picture of him, no, I'm not talking about the rap star. I'm just saying how ridiculous is it. Don't.
That's not even ludicrous. That's Kendrick Lamar.
Well, I'm saying like before you find a picture of Ludacris and put him up, I'm just saying it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they may even make this comparison. That they're basically trying to toss dirt on the Attitude Era and trying to say, oh, hey, this is the here and now. The here and now is the best. Here and now, we're doing better than ever. No, you're not, okay? Put up the same ratings that you did in the Attitude Era, and then, like, maybe you could talk. All right. Next, you have Rusev taking a shot at the Indies. Corey Graves said he would have been hot about this 6 to 7 years ago when he started in FCW. They used the Indies as a way to measure their passion, and they would look down on a guy like Baron Corbin who basically shot his way to the top through NXT and up to SmackDown. He then sat with Corbin for 4 hours in a car and opened his eyes as he picked his brain to learn about the Indies. JBL feels the guy should learn as much as they can, but being in the minors for 15 years shouldn't be a badge of honor. He says that until AJ Styles got to the WWE, we would never consider him the best in the world. Get the heck out of here with that garbage. Quote, unquote. Okay. I mean, I get that WWE has this thing, like, unless it can benefit them, they won't bring up another promotion. They won't bring up Ring of Honor. They won't bring up New Japan Wrestling unless it benefits them in some shape or form. Okay, otherwise, they'll pretend that no other promotion exists. Unless they absolutely have to mention them, because otherwise, how would anyone know these? Oh, yeah, he came from New Japan. Oh, what is that? What is that? It's a promotion over, it's one of the biggest wrestling promotions in Japan, in the world today. Oh, he came from Ring of Honor. What's that? It's another big it's a big American promotion, Impact Wrestling. WWE absolutely won't mention that, even though it's probably on its last legs. Okay, you have so many other different promotions, both international and stateside, and yet WWE won't acknowledge this unless there's some benefit for them. But now you're having someone like Bradshaw coming over saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter if you shed blood, sweat, and tears for 15 years. Oh, guess what? It doesn't mean a thing." Now, I get that there's having a wrestling mindset coming up through the indies, and then there's having the WWE mindset that basically, basically what you did before was just to prepare you for WWE. It's not going to help you, but it prepares you. Basically, once you step in, you basically, everything that you learn up to that point has to go to the back of your mind, and you have to start learning about the WWE style of doing things. Backstage manners, how you act in the ring, how you act out of the ring, how you act on social media. That's the WWE way of things. And then there's the regular way when you're on the road 200 to 300 days a year, wrestling in gyms, wrestling in like armories, wrestling like across the seas. There's a world of difference between coming up through the indies and wrestling in WWE. I understand that. I get that. What I don't appreciate, what I don't think anyone appreciates, is someone like JBL just absolutely throwing dirt, burying anyone who ever came up through the independent ranks, saying nothing you did matter, and that AJ Styles would not be... Okay, AJ Styles was having Match of the Year candidates. One of them being was Shinsuke Nakamura over in New Japan, over in Impact Wrestling, in Ring of Honor. So and actually won number 1 in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated rankings, top 500. Number 1, a few years back. So yes, he actually was literally the best in the world at one point without having stepped foot in WWE. So JBL, your words ring just a little bit hollow. All right. So basically, they just go over some topical stuff, like about Montreal hockey, about the fact that Kane is running for office in Tennessee. His slogan being, "Lighting the way for our future." You know, because he used to be all about fire. But I'm bummed. All right. You got Vince's birthday tweet to Cena, where he calls him the Babe Ruth of wrestling. Okay. The Babe Ruth of wrestling. Okay. So we're not going to so he's just kind of like glossing over Hulk Hogan right there. He's glossing over Hogan now, Vince is. Nice. All right. The big finish is all about Jinder Mahal, and Rosenberg is all for it. He thinks Jinder can be WWE champion. JBL puts over SmackDown. That it gives chances. It's up to Jinder to make the most of it. Compares to the chance he was given with Eddie. Okay, here's the problem with that. Even though it was interesting to see them give an opportunity with Bradshaw over Eddie Guerrero in 2004, he ended up being, JBL, like is publicly known as the worst drawing WWE champion since Diesel. Worst drawing. SmackDown had its worst ratings ever when JBL was WWE champion on SmackDown. The longest rating SmackDown champion on SmackDown. Yes, but bottom line, no. And I mean, again, this is the point I brought up to you, Nick, to you and Greg, just a little bit earlier before we went on the show today. All right, WWE is already over huge. They're already very popular over in India. Do you really think that they're going to put the belt on Jinder Mahal just to cement maybe like a few more thousand viewers, like a few more subscribers to WWE Network, or just have more people tune in from India?
Well, it's all about views, Ken.
I mean, I get it's about views, but you're already vastly popular over in India. What would be the point of putting the belt on Mahal? I mean, it's a short-term notion at best, okay? Yeah, it'll get you a short-term boost, but, all right, for this to be long-term, they would actually have to be fully committed, 100% behind Mahal. If WWE is just behind Mahal just to get a few more thousand viewers, a few more thousand clicks or subscribers for the WWE Network, okay, that's not thinking long-term. Again, that's more short-term thinking from the office of Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Oh, yeah.
Who touted at the top of the year, I'm all about long-term thinking now, long-term planning. All right? If you're going to be committed about this, then Mahal needs to win convincingly at Backlash, and he needs to run with the championship for at least 3 to 4 months. going into SummerSlam. Otherwise, shunt him back down the card, put him in a U.S. title feud, because actually that would be more fitting and ironic for someone like Mahal with his whole anti-American stance. Never seen that before. Rusev. And just, I mean, okay, then do that. All right. It's just that one sticking point that makes me think that WWE's not going to pull the trigger on Mahal, and Orton's going to steamroll through him at Backlash. I mean, I'm not saying that's an early prediction. Like I said, I'm still on the fence about. I'm just saying I'm on the fence about it. Is what I'm trying to say. All right. So thankfully, I mean, so just going down the line. I mean, going down the line here, the show, the reason. I mean, the show, it just drove me nuts watching this, having to sit through this, trying to sift through all the crap JBL was spewing, basically towing the company line even more than usual, blatantly ignoring the controversy that he's been through with Mauro Ranallo in the last few weeks. I mean, Graves didn't contribute anything, and Rosenberg just, I mean, Rosenberg was just bad. He was just plain flat out bad as a host. Because he comes up with the most oddball subjects that, like, I mean, you're only going to, oddly specific topics that you basically know what JBL and Corey Graves are going to say. Like, there's no anticipation to it. Instead of, like, actual news work, we're more or less just getting, like, argumentative debating for, like, 20, 30 minutes. Like, I mean, and John Cena actually pointed this out. He likes how ESPN is more about argumentative debating than actual news work. John, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing for ESPN or for professional wrestling. That's a big problem. The fact that we're more about arguing nowadays, than actually doing research and actually making the effort. Instead we're just coming off as opinionated and lacking the accuracy and knowledge of our past generations. That's the way I look at it. All right. So
You want to get to this Raw and Smackdown stuff?
yeah, let's get to the Raw and Smackdown stuff. I'm going to try and pick up my spirits a little bit because we're over in jolly old England. Pip pip cheerio. Yes. Smashing. Aw. Yeah, my best Nigel impression. Okay. So we kicked things off, surprise, surprise, with another talking head segment. We had The Miz supposedly claiming that, we had Dean Ambrose supposedly claiming that Kurt Angle may put him in charge as acting general manager since Kurt Angle couldn't make it across the pond. And Miz supposedly was put in place as co-acting general manager thanks to one Stephanie McMahon, who thankfully remained off screen. Thank goodness. All right, so with basically nothing to go on but their word, we're supposed to believe that these two are acting general managers, which is fine, okay? It gives them a little extra layer for their Intercontinental title feud, which apparently is the match which has been bumped up to surprisingly next week instead of the next pay-per-view, I guess. All right, so we have that. I mean, so basically we had a match with. So Ambrose ended up making a match with Miz versus Finn Balor. Miz basically.
I'm getting there. Hold on. I gotta find it.
Yeah, it's the next one.
Yeah, two.
Raw
There we
2.
go.
Yeah. So basically, Balor was closing in the victory. Miz throws Balor into the ref, tries to use his GM powers to issue a disqualification for Balor and get out of the match. Ambrose says, comes out, restarts the match. Balor lays him out, hits the coup de grace. Yeah, thank you. Hits the coup de grace and gets a clean victory going into his feud with Bray Wyatt. Speaking of which, Bray Wyatt was put in the main event with Dean Ambrose thanks to The Miz, but we'll elaborate on that a little bit later. All right, moving on to the next part. No, number 3. There we go. You had a big old backstage brawl between one Seth Rollins and one Samoa Joe, just to let us know that this feud is not over yet. So basically, this led to a match between the two where Samoa Joe ended up steamrolling Rollins, assaulting him so much that the ref had to disqualify Joe for excessive violence and issuing the win to Rollins, which was fine. But at the same time, this certainly had more of a degree of aggression to it. It was a better mapped out match than their Payback installment. It was still just missing that aggressive personal vibe. It just didn't strike me as like, why should I be interested in this? Why should I be interested in Joe going after Rollins or Rollins going after Joe? Make me care. I mean, give me a bigger reason than Joe just saying, "Oh, I'm doing this for Triple H and Stephanie." Like, we had a fiery promo by Joe saying, "Okay, I'm going to tear him apart until there's nothing left." That's good. That's the kind of fire we want to see, just not in bits and pieces, but throughout. It will give their ultimate match, the last match in their feud, a bigger payoff once it builds up to that. Right now, I feel like they're just kind of dragging their feet. For the most part, though, they did a better job this week than they did at Payback. All right, so moving on from there, moving on to the next one. Of course, you had the British flags. At the very least, they didn't have one of those old-timey British toll booths anywhere, so no blatant British stereotypes here, thank goodness. All right, so basically you had Nia Jax more or less calling out Alexa on, "Did you really consider me one of the best athletes on here?" Alexa, in her typical cowardly heel type way, said, "Yes, of course. Why would I lie to you?" And Nia basically said, "Okay, well, until we see Angle again, until you finish stuff up with Bayley, I'll have your back. But then as soon as we see Angle again, as soon as you're done with Bayley, Nia gets first crack." Which is interesting because Alexa has already pinned Bayley twice. Once at Payback for the championship, and last week in tag team action on Raw. So it kind of seems like that Alexa already really has Bayley's number as far as I'm concerned. So I think maybe they're just kind of looking at an excuse just to give Alexa a bodyguard in Nia Jax, which isn't a bad idea, mind you. Just kind of confusing how they went about it. All right, so moving on from there. There we go. We had what was one of the big parts of WWE Raw over in London was the tag team turmoil. 5 teams facing off in a gauntlet-style match. The last team remaining would be the #1 contenders to the Hardy Boys tag team titles. Now, you had Cesaro and Sheamus, who had been gunning for Hardy since their big heel turn last week. And surprisingly, this is the first, as far as I've seen in tag team turmoil, one of the teams that started it, that being Cesaro and Sheamus, ends up running the gauntlet. Basically, they went through all 4 other teams. They went through Heath Slater and Rhino. They went through Gallows and Anderson. They went through Goldust and R-Truth. I'm trying to remember who it doesn't really matter. All right, so basically they went through 4 other tag teams, bar none, clean as a whistle, which I thought was great. Gives Cesaro and Sheamus some much-needed momentum going into their rematch for the tag team titles. Really puts them over as dominant physical challengers. Basically that they almost can't be stopped now that they're on a single-minded goal of winning the tag team titles and ending the Hardy's nostalgia run. I think this is a great big step towards that. All right, so changing gears from there. Yep, you got Sheamus and Goldust. Yeah, we had the Golden Truth had some good fire, being the last team out. Try to take advantage of Sheamus and Cesaro being weakened, but Sheamus and Cesaro would ultimately win out on this and claim the #1 contendership status. Alrighty, moving on. All right, next we had Kalisto challenging Strowman to a match, basically saying, okay, no one makes garbage out of me, So I don't care. I don't care if I'm being ridiculous. I want a match with Strowman. So kudos to Kalisto for showing a lot of fire and having being that he's just not going to be another one of the guys, the nameless number of people squashed by Strowman. He wants to get revenge on Strowman. Good luck with that. All right, so this match was going along even with one arm with Strowman, who had suffered from supposedly a torn rotator cuff. As we found out, he actually does have to have shoulder surgery, and will be out for a number of weeks, 4 to 8 weeks to be exact. But I mean, having Roman Reigns come out and basically beat him about with a steel chair, beat his bad shoulder about with a steel chair, and driving him out to the ringside into the audience, I thought was the best way. Okay, give Reigns a measure of revenge, but not so much. But leave the door open for Strowman to come back in and bulldoze not only Reigns, but basically dominate the rest of the Raw roster all over again. I thought that was a good way. Send Strowman off TV, but not so much that will put Reigns over and, like, get the crowd even more riled up against him. All right, so moving on from there. All right, next we had the main event, Bray Wyatt versus Dean Ambrose. You had Miz on commentary, so of course you knew he was going to get involved. Seemed like Ambrose was closing on the victory. I mean, it was more or less more like a paint by numbers with Wyatt and Ambrose. We were all kind of waiting for them to kind of ramp up the aggression right here to really get into another gear, but they never did. So go fit. That's a that's a Raw main event for you. All right, so at the end, Miz gets involved, cracks Dean over the back of the head with the Intercontinental Championship. Wyatt picks up a non-title victory. Of course, doesn't matter since Miz is going to be challenging Dean Ambrose next week for the Intercontinental Championship rather than Extreme Rules, which kind of surprised me, which makes me wonder if they're not going to just go with the switch right here and then have the rematch at Extreme Rules. Kind of makes you wonder. All right, so changing gears on over to SmackDown, which I say only SmackDown because
That's your first picture, so.
Yes, ping file, lovely. Oh,
Doesn't like those.
Yeah, just to let you know, it was basically just a picture of JBL, just to let everyone know. Yep, he's still hired. He's still announcing for SmackDown. So, just to let everyone know about that. Wink, wink.
Oh boy! All right, moving on.
Okay, so moving on. I actually like this little talking head segment right here. You basically had Kevin Owens and AJ Styles and Sami Zayn and Baron Corbin, and then you have Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal. Mahal showing like display photos of basically him wearing the WWE Championship, trying to turn the mind games back on the Viper, which I actually thought was pretty good. Okay, you give Mahal, like, despite what I said earlier, at least they're making an effort to build Mahal up to be a decent, credible threat to Orton, and not just another faceless mid-card guy for Orton to run through his latest championship reign. That I liked. All right, so I thought it was a pretty good opening segment to help set up for the 6-man tag main event later in the night. All right, so moving on from there. All right, like I said, you had the welcoming committee with welcoming committee's Natalya facing off with Becky Lynch. Now, of course, you have the welcoming committee, which are one big unified group right there, one big happy family of course, Cousin Oliver over there, Mr. James Ellsworth. Bum. Going up against Becky Lynch, who was seconded by Naomi, SmackDown Women's Champion Naomi, and surprisingly, one of the challengers to the Women's Championship, Charlotte, who didn't really appreciate being left laying by the welcoming committee, but at the same time, not really gelling well with Naomi and Becky. Now, of course, so Natalya takes advantage of that whole miscommunication between the three face superstars, picks up a win on Becky. So ultimately, this is leading towards a 6-women tag match at WWE Backlash. But you can't help but wonder maybe if this is where Becky ultimately turns heel, or if we're just going to have a weird face dichotomy with Becky and Charlotte, former friends, and Naomi, the women's champion. That's going to be interesting. I mean, I like what they're doing here. The welcoming committee don't appreciate Charlotte coming over here and trying to steal their opportunities for the women's championship, which I find kind of funny considering Tamina Snuka was originally on Raw. She got traded over to SmackDown as well. So basically, the difference between the difference between Tamina and Charlotte is that Charlotte asked for the opportunity and got it. She asked Naomi for an opportunity. She asked Shane McMahon for an opportunity. And hey, what do you know? She got it. So I think if Tamina had just asked, she would have gotten the opportunity as well. I mean, Shane's a very friendly kind of guy. He's a very open, forward kind of guy. If you asked him for an opportunity, he calls SmackDown the land of opportunity. So he would give it to you. So, I mean, go figure, right? Oh yeah, WWE, the land of opportunity and miscommunication. All right, so moving on. Of course, well, I guess I spoke too soon when we said they didn't have any of the British stereotypes. Of course, you had one of the British Bobbies in Tyler Breeze, and you had, of course, the classic Sherlock Holmes. It's elementary. That promo is so elementary, my dear Nick. Yeah, so basically they did a whole little fun backstage skit for their fashion files in their build-up towards facing the Usos for the tag team titles. I mean, it's good that they're giving these guys a little more character and depth. I thought the Usos promo following the Fashion Police's win over the Ascension was interesting, but went a little bit off the off the rails. I mean, if you caught the promo that I'm talking about, you'd kind of get where I'm coming from. It gets a little, sketchy. All right, but in the same, I mean, it's interesting. They're trying something new. They're not just going with American Alpha versus the Usos part 50 or whatever. So the fact that they're going with a different tag team, entertaining tag team at the least, with Fandango and Tyler Breeze, Breezango for Breeze, whatever, I think is interesting. Now, this one, I think it's just kind of pathetic, if it is true. Supposedly, the whole crybaby storyline, the whole crybaby gimmick that they've got Aiden English going through now, is supposedly a dig at erstwhile announcer Mauro Ranallo for supposedly overreacting how he was purportedly treated by JBL. That he was hazed, bullied, harassed, however you want to call it, that he overreacted about it, and that he was purportedly a crybaby backstage. Now, honestly, you have Mauro more or less take the money and not say a thing about what happened with him and JBL, claiming his release had nothing, his walking away had nothing to do with JBL, and yet you got WWE still taking pot shots at Mauro, even though he agreed to walk away and not say a thing. So, yeah. Stay classy, WWE. Stay classy, JBL. And stay classy, Mr. English. All right, so moving on.
How long is it?
All right, so moving on from there. We had Eric Rowan versus Luke Harper, and I feel bad about this. I feel bad for Luke Harper, just because, I mean, since you had Bray Wyatt move over to Raw, you never really got anything resolved. You still had kind of an open storyline between the former Wyatt member, Luke Harper, and the leader of the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt, that you could have resolved, and you could have had a barn burner of a match at WWE Backlash. You could have had something interesting go on between these two. Instead, they bumped Wyatt over to Raw, like I said, for whatever reason, basically just to feed him the Finn Balor. And now you got Luke Harper actually losing to Eric Rowan, another guy who's basically aimless on the SmackDown mid-card roster. So, again, I mean, we brought this up a couple of times with these two. I'd say just pair Luke and Rowan back up and just throw them into the SmackDown tag team division. Why not? Because these two were always more outstanding as a brutish brawler type tag team, rather than I mean Luke certainly has potential as a single star. Let's not take that away from him. Former Intercontinental Champion, and all that, and he certainly had some interesting matches with the likes of CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Dean Ambrose, Randy Orton. Okay, so he's capable of having good matches. I just don't think WWE recognizes that. For some reason, they don't recognize what a potential talent they have in Harper, and they just kind of keep not, instead of just having like complete left turns in his character, they're not taking any real turns with him at all. They're not doing anything with Harper. They're just kind of letting him languish on the SmackDown roster, which makes me wonder, like, if they have any real interest in him, if they really see the potential that a lot of the fans, including myself, do. It remains to be seen. But more or less, this is kind of just, like I said, middle of the road for me, and I'm hoping that maybe they do something with either of these two men. All right, so moving on from there. All right, we come to the main event, 6-man tag team match. I thought this was a good main event. Had some good fire, back and forth, a couple of good near falls. Of course, you were building up 3 separate. The good thing about these 6-man tags is they help you build up multiple feuds, so it's good multitasking booking if you pull it off correctly. So basically, you're building up Sami Zayn versus Baron Corbin, AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens for the United States Championship, which I think should be really good. I think will be the match of the night at WWE Backlash, the way it's looking. And then of course you got Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton, and they had Jinder getting the pinfall on Randy Orton, taking advantage of all the confusion at the end of the match, picking up the win with Orton with the Cobra Clutch Slam, pinning him clean. So, on the one hand, okay, typically when they do this, like when you do this leading into a pay-per-view, it more or less dictates that the champion, whoever got pinned, is going to go over. Because you have to say, oh yeah, Jinder's totally got a chance now. He pinned the WWE champion. No. I mean, if anything, I think that just sows more doubt as to like who's going to go over here. Is WWE really going to pull the trigger on Jinder? Are they going to no longer hinder? Are they not going to hinder Jinder? Hinder the Jinder? They're not going to hinder. Are they not going to hinder the Jinder and put the belt
on Tinder?
They're not going to on Tinder, or they're not going to burn him to a cinder. They're not going to burn him to a cinder. They're not going to bury him on Tinder. They're not going to hinder the Jinder.
On Tinder to cinders.
On Tinder to cinders. Or return him to cinders. Yeah, no. Okay, moving on. Anyway, I thought it was good. They gave him a pinfall over Orton, build up some interest for the match, and saying, "Oh, hey, Mahal has a chance, yay!" Okay, but again, like I said, I think it just puts more doubt in mind as to like whether WWE will go with this or just have Orton steamroll him. Kind of makes you wonder. All right, so that's all for Raw and SmackDown, and of course,
hold on, you got one more picture.
I got one. Oh, yeah, Mahal standing tall over Orton. Like I said, building up interest for their match at Backlash, which should be interesting. I mean, like I said, this kind of the old wait. Like I said, this is the old wait and see right here. I mean, I think they could put together, I think, a pretty good match. I don't know if it'll be great. I think it'll be a good match though, and hopefully should give Mahal just a little bit of main event cred that will at least last him for the rest of the year, or at least not a few months. All right, so now that we got Raw and SmackDown out of the way, we got that ridiculous bring it to the table out of the way. Before we sign off, about last week, where I flew off the handle. Let's just say that. I flew off the handle. I more or less lashed out at, all hail McHale. You see, my problem with him goes beyond the WK King of Pay-Per-View Championship. It goes beyond that. You see, for the longest time, for the last couple of years, for the last couple of seasons, I've had people questioning me, saying like, "Oh, we watched you in the first year. You were so much more enthusiastic. You had so much more energy. Now it just seems like you go through the motions. You don't really care. You don't care about what you talk about. You don't care about the wrestling. You don't care about Raw. You don't care about SmackDown. You don't care about the pay-per-views. You don't care about wrestling, period. You're taking your show for granted. You're resting on your laurels." Okay? I find that funny. I find that extremely funny because, like I said last week, for 167 straight weeks, I have never missed an episode. I have dealt with mono. I have dealt with a blood clot that I nearly lost my leg, if not my life, over. I have dealt with head colds, with influenza, the whole 9 yards. I've had financial troubles. I put up with so much, and yet I find the energy, I find the time to come in here week after week, month after month, year after year to do this show. And you know why? Because I love it. Because I love doing this show. I love the rhetoric. I love the back and forth I have with Nick and Greg. I love the jokes.
We do too.
I love the travioli. I love the dancing pen. I love all of it. All right, I look forward to it every time I come in here. And maybe there are some times where it sounds like I'm mailing it in. I'm phoning it in. Maybe I admit that. I admit there are some days where I phone it in. But the bottom line is I still show up, I do my job, and I deliver the news to you as only I can deliver it. That's what I do. You cannot doubt my commitment, and you can certainly not question my passion for this bit, for what I do. I have been following wrestling for 16 odd years now. 16 odd years. And for anyone to come in here and question me, okay, where's your commitment? Where's your drive? I mean, I've had multiple co-hosts. I've had co-hosts who came around for a cup of coffee. I've had co-hosts like Zach and Julian who have moved on to different things, who have moved on to real-life situations, such as being engaged, such as moving on to get married, moving on to pursue a career in professional wrestling, which they're doing right now with Top Rope Promotions. And for that, I give them all the kudos in the world. And yet, okay, who's stayed here to steer the ship? Who's been here the entire time? Every single episode. I mean, even Greg and Nick in the back can't claim that. They can't claim to have been here for every single episode. There are some days where they have to be with their kids, where they have to be with their families. And I don't hold that against them in the slightest, because it shows the commitment and devotion and love they have for their friends, family, and their work outside of this show. And for that, I give them all my respect and kudos to them. Because they have commitments other than this. This is my big commitment. This is my devotion. I've called wrestling my mistress. This show is my mistress. I put more time, more energy. I have put money, I have put effort, I have put sweat, I have put tears into this show, into the social media pages, into the website. No one else. It's all been me. Not all about me. It's been all me. Running everything behind the scenes. Uploading the shows every week to the Wrestling Connection page. Updating the websites. Doing the pay-per-view coverage every Sunday. It's not Greg, it's not Nick, it's not Zach or Julian or anyone else doing this. It's me. So if it seems like that I'm a little tired, if it seems like that I'm not at my absolute best, I'm oh so sorry, but I am one man. I can only do so much, and it ticks me off when someone through a live chat, through email, or just comes up to me and says, "I don't think you're doing your level. I think you could be doing better. I think you should go back and be more enthusiastic. I think you should be more energetic." Okay, you do a show for for nearly 3.5 years, every single week, running a website and running everything else concerning your show. Then you come back to me and tell me and question my passion. I know what it takes to run this show. I have been here since the beginning. And to have someone like Mikhail come on here and say, maybe you don't have what it takes anymore. Maybe I'm the champion now. You've been here all of 2 weeks. You had one good night. One good night. I've had 12 good nights. Every time I've lost that championship, I climb right back up that mountain. No matter how many times I get knocked off, I always come back strong. I always bring my level best. I always bring my best competition, no matter who it is. Whether it's been Brian, whether it's been Mr. 8-Ball back there, whether it's been the Almighty Printer, whether it's been the Zack Attack, whether it's been Julian, or even now, all hail Mikhail. I have seen them all come, I have seen them all go, and I'm still here. I have stood the test of time for over 3 years, for 4 seasons. For 4 seasons. No one knows this show. No one breathes this show. No one is this show more than me.
You are Ken. Do we need some Zen with Ken, or are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay. Chant with me, Ken.
So, Mikhail, you better buckle up. And you better hold that title very, very close. Okay? Maybe I did coast for a while. Maybe I did rest on my laurels a bit. Maybe I did, instead of swimming with sharks, maybe I found a tropical island. Maybe I kicked back. Maybe I just enjoyed myself just a little bit too much. And yet now, you want to be that undertow. You want to be that big wave. You want to be that big colossal wave that drags me back out to the middle of the sea. You want to be the one to drag me out back amongst the sharks. And yet, you have no idea, do you? You have no idea that you have gone and dragged the biggest shark there is on the Wrestling Connection back out to the middle of the ocean. And now you're going to be gasping for air. Because when I get a hold of you, when I get a hold of that King of Pay-Per-View Championship, I'm not going to let go. Because now you've pulled the big shark back into the water, and you're bleeding. And I'm going to smell that blood. I'm going to be on top of that. And as soon as I catch up to you, and I will, and get back that King of Pay-Per-View title, and top you at Backlash, once again, for the 13th time, lucky 13, not only will I be back on top of the mountain, I'll come on to Sports Scholars the next week, and I'll show you how a show
the week
should
after.
be run. The week after. I'll come on to Sports Scholars, and I'll show you how a show should be properly run. and then I'll be happy to connect your world to mine.
I think you need this.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
Now.
All right. So, I've got a lot to look forward to next Friday. Next Friday, we got our big Backlash pay-per preview. Like I
With the
said,
video.
with video. I can't wait. Hopefully this one won't be pulled. All right. So, like I said, we got Corbin versus Zayn. We've got Orton versus Mahal. We've got, for the WWE Championship, we've got Styles versus the face of America, Kevin Owens, amongst other matches. A lot to look forward to next Friday. Hopefully we'll have the whole WK Krew here for predictions being made, along with the brand spanking, sparkling new king of pay-per-view himself, Mr. All Hail McHale. Yeah, that's my no. That's how you salute All Hail McHale. All right. So, in the meantime, folks, looking forward to next Friday. Hope to see you all for the pay-per preview. In the meantime, be connected, get connected, stay connected. Yeah, have a good weekend, ladies and gentlemen. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's some things that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the wrestling connection, the lovers, the dreamers.